we thought that nothing was bigger than the Eldrazi. And then we saw the top 8 for Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar. Hello, everyone. You have the best seat in the house for what could be one of the truly great days in Magic history. Rich Hagan alongside Hall of Famers Luis Scott Vargas and Randy Buehler introducing you to, guys, as I say, it could just be amazing. Luis, what are you most looking forward to today in the top 8 of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar?
John Finkel versus Paulo Vitor. It's just one of the best matches you can imagine.
It really is. They're arguably 2 of the best 3 players of all time in the game, and they're going toe-to-toe later this morning. Randy, same answer?
I'll say Finkel versus Owen in the finals.
Oh,
how insane would that be, right?
Okay, I will give you that would be the cherry on top of what is an absolutely calorie-packed cake coming your way here at Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar. Let's mark your card and show you what's coming your way. Let's take our first look at the top 8 bracket here this morning in Milwaukee. So this is what we have lined up for you. We will begin. Quarterfinal 1 is Rickyk Chin of Canada against Ryoichi Tamada of Japan. That's green-white Megamorph for Chin and Jeskai for Tamada. Once we've done that little appetizer, we will move you on to Paulo Vitor Dama da Rosa of Brazil against John Finkel. Just the 25 Pro Tour top 8s between the 2 of them. That's a Taka Red for Paulo up against Dark Jeskai for Finkel. Then we draw breath. Then it's time for one of the young guns, Martin Muller of Denmark, the Danish World Magic Cup captain, Dane Blast and all. He goes up against Kazuyuki Takemura of Japan. That matchup is Jeskai tokens against Abzan for Takemura. And then, just the small matter of the 2nd place finisher from the World Championship, just 1 game away, Owen Turtenwald in his 3rd Pro Tour top 8, up against the man he so nearly knocked out of the top 8 in the final round yesterday, Paul Dean of Canada, the Magic Online PTQ winner. That matchup is Dark Jeskai for Turtenwald, Abzan for Dean. So that marks your card. That's what's coming your way in an incredible morning of Magic entertainment. We will get straight into the business of setting you up for quarterfinal 1, and that means Rickyk Chin against Ryoichi Tamada. Why don't we take a look at Rickyk Chin playing the green-white Megamorph deck? Let's take a look at his profile for you. There you see him, 27 years of age. He has 3 lifetime pro points, earned $400, which is going to go up by at least 10,000 this morning. This is his first Pro Tour top 8, and there's a good reason for that, because this is his very first Pro Tour. Just astonishing. Why don't we take a look at his deck? Let's show you what he's working with. And Randy, this is a green-white Megamorph deck.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the decks that was expected coming into the tournament. People tested against this. People knew they were going to need to beat it, but it's also very, very good. It's consistent. You know, Ricky himself will tell you that, excuse me, every card in there is individually good and capable of winning on its own. The Den Protector Death Mist Raptor combo is where the name really comes from. Just a solid deck top to bottom, and Gideon Ally of Zendikar really put it over the top when that card got printed.
Yep, 5/5 indestructible, let's make some knights. It's just a terrific deck, and as you say, everything in it. The card that perhaps is most interesting this weekend turns out to have been Silk Wrap. That's done a lot of really good work.
Yeah, it's a great point. It feels almost like the card just got printed because it wasn't getting played last year, but it just lines up so well against the threats that you need to deal with in this standard right now. You know, taking a Hangerback Walker out of play with Silk Wrap, it doesn't matter if they blow up your enchantment. It's going to come back as a 0/0. And it's also a nice 2-mana answer to threats you want to deal with right away, including Jace, Vryn's Prodigy.
All right, now we have lots of big teams here at Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar, but not everyone comes with an entourage of 12 or 15. Sometimes it's just you and a buddy going to your first PT. Waiting for us patiently across the studio is Brian David Marshall with the entire Rickyk Chin teamwork.
I am sitting here with Max Auger. Max, you also played in your first Pro Tour this weekend.
Yeah.
So you and Ricky are your friends. You play locally in Quebec, and you both qualify at the same RTQ.
Yeah.
And then you're coming to this Pro Tour. What are your goals? Like, what were your expectations for the 2 of you coming into this tournament?
Well, we just wanted to play it out and see what happens. We had no real expectations before the tournament began, and I think it ended up pretty well for Ricky.
What's the reaction been like from your local Magic playing community to both. I mean, to you guys both getting to go to the Pro Tour, but now also seeing Ricky's success.
Yeah, I think the only word that came out is wow. Yeah, I don't think anyone expected any of us to do really well here, and Ricky ended up finishing the second seed in this first Pro Tour. So I think like people have no words for that.
So you guys go into the draft round here at the beginning of the Pro Tour. I know you're sitting between John Finkel and Andrew Cuneo for your first experience of playing on the Pro Tour, and like, oh no, I'm gonna have to draft. Do you see any good cards?
None. The first one I picked.
And you both actually went 1 and 2 in your first draft.
Yeah.
Where are your guys? You know, you're going into round 4. What were you guys saying to each other? What was your mindset at that point? I mean, Ricky started 0-2.
Yeah. Only thing we both told each other is we have to win now, yeah, or it's over. So we won our first 2 rounds of standards, and then it went not really well for me after that day, and Ricky kept winning and winning. So he was undefeated in first day in the standard. Actually, I think he was undefeated in standard the whole tournament.
Yeah, he went 8-0-2 in standard.
Yeah.
I know you guys quickly have a Quebec City Grand Prix next weekend. Standard. Is that the deck you're going to bring to play with?
Not sure yet, but Ricky's definitely going to play that one again.
Okay, Max, thanks so much. Sending it back to the news desk.
Great stuff. You know, like I say, you don't need a giant team. Sometimes you can just be good and the cards fall your way. And you find yourself in the top 8, and what a star-studded top 8 it is. Right, so that's Rickyk Chin with his green-white Megamorph. Why don't we take a look at the profile for Ryoichi Tamada, his opponent here in the quarterfinals. It's going to be best 2 out of 3. Let's take a look at his opponent, Ryoichi Tamada. So there is the Japanese player. He's 31 years old, a Silver Pro. Silver Pro, that means you get 1 invite to the Pro Tour of your choice during a season. Well, the good news is he put that to very good use. Great job. 61 lifetime pro points. That's a good number. It's going to get dwarfed in a couple of hours' time, but that's still a very, very solid number indeed. As you see, over $8,000 in lifetime earnings. That's going to go to at least the best part of $20,000 because the losing quarterfinalists here are into 5 figures. His first Pro Tour top 8, couple of Grand Prix top 8s to his name. Now, 7-3 in standard. That's one of the less exciting records amongst the top 8, and he made up for it by going 5-1. So, Luis, his deck, if we take a look here, this is a Jeskai deck. So what's going on in the world of Jeskai?
Well, it's notable that there's no black cards in this list. Dark Jeskai is actually the dominant Jeskai deck right now, and Ryoichi just chose to play straight up Jeskai. And, you know, what he gets out of that is presumably better mana, as well as he's just playing 4 of all the great cards, Mantis Rider, Jace, Seeker of the Way, and also jamming the full 4 Jeskai Charm, 4 Valorous Stance. You don't see that very often anymore.
Okay, so the choice of Dark Jeskai versus regular Jeskai, where did you guys end up in your testing? Were you very much, let's go beyond 3 colors?
Yeah, we ended up playing Dark Jeskai, a slightly different build, but part of the reason is if you look at Ryoichi's deck list, he's got Cinderglade and Canopy Vista off-color dual lands because he can get them with his fetch lands because it actually fixes his mana. Given that, we felt it was pretty free to splash another color.
Okay, do you like where he's positioned? Do you like the deck he's come to battle with?
I like the fact that he's got 4 Jeskai Charm in his deck. That's one of the things I love. I think it's an awesome card, especially against green-white Megamorph, and having access to it is really powerful.
Okay, so now guys, let's open it up a little. We've looked at both decks, so give us a winner. Randy, who do you pick here?
I like Rickyk Chin. I mean, you looked last week on the open circuit, 4 green-white Megamorph, 4 Jeskai make the top 8. It's Megamorph in the finals. I think it's just got a deck edge.
Luis, do you agree?
No, I'll go with Jeskai. Again, I think the Jeskai Charm over Crackling Doom is actually really good for this matchup.
All right, let's see if Jeskai can work the charm for Ryoichi Tamada, or will it be Rickyk Chin with green-white Megamorph? Let's find out. It's time for the first quarterfinal of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar.
Hello there, and welcome to the booth here in Milwaukee. Marshall Sutcliffe with Ian Duke, and we are thrilled and honored to bring you the first of 4 quarterfinal matches. The players are ready in the feature match area. Let's head down for the first quarterfinal match here from Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Ian Duke from Wizards of the Coast R&D. Welcome, Ian.
Great to be here. This is going to be awesome.
This is super exciting. This is the first quarterfinal match of our top 8. And down in the feature match area, we have from Japan, Ryoichi Tamada. Now, Ryoichi's playing a Jeskai deck, and we saw kind of a breakout of a Jeskai deck with black in it as well. We were calling it Dark Jeskai. Oh, he's not on that one. He's on traditional. Now, his opponent on the other side of the table, this is a fantastic setup here for us in the booth. Ian, Rickyk Chin from Canada. This is his first Pro Tour ever.
Yeah, just amazing to see such success. I mean, no one expects this. I'm sure Ricky himself had no expectations of making the top 8, but here he is.
It's so crazy to find yourself sitting here under the lights in the top 8 quarterfinals in your first PT. The guy has like 3 pro points total. He's won $400 at Magic, and here he is. So let's get underway here now. He's playing green-white Megamorph. Ian, talk to us about the matchup. How does this play out?
Well, I mean, Ricky's a green-white deck. He's got tons of creatures. He wants to curve out early and just kind of start attacking. Ryoichi Tamada, on the other hand, he's a very traditional Jeskai list. Luis talked a little bit about the deck list. He's playing 4 copies of almost all the non-land cards in his deck, so very consistent, very kind of traditional. And Ryoichi Tamada, he's got 12 2-drops. They're kind of the key to his deck, so it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out on turn 2 here. Hangerback Walker, Jace, Seeker of the Way being the key cards he wants to lead off the game with.
Oh, he just drew a Seeker off the top of his deck here. How would you describe this Jeskai deck in terms of is it an aggro deck? Is it a tempo deck? Is it a control deck?
I would call it a tempo deck. He definitely wants to curve out and be aggressive. The presence of the Seekers of the Way in 4 copies really keys me into that. I think he wants to play a Seeker on turn 2, then followed up with removal spells like Silk Wrap, Valorous Stance, and Fiery Impulse, and just start attacking, doing a ton of damage, gaining a bunch of life, setting things up to finish it with one of his 4 Jeskai charms, perhaps.
Okay, now what about the green-white Megamorph deck for Rickyk Chin? Is this what I think it is, if I had been watching Standard for a lot of last season?
Yeah, very traditional green-white Megamorph deck. You'll see all the usual suspects here. Den Protector, Deafness Raptor package, Hangerback Walkers, Nissa, Vastwood Seer, Warden of the First Tree, as we see beating down here.
Ooh, speaking of beating down, check this out.
Yeah.
Face up, Den Protector. You don't see that very often, but looks like Rickyk Chin wants to get aggressive.
Yeah, we saw this a little bit at the World Championship from Seth Manfield, and it's usually an indicator that the player is short on lands. And I think that's what we're seeing here from Rickyk Chin.
Again, Ricky's from Canada, playing in his first PT. Tamada's been at it for a while, though. This is not his first rodeo.
So Tamada actually maybe taking the lead in board development here, hitting his 3rd land drop first, which is just huge. And we could see something like a Mantis Rider come down this turn.
Yeah, that would put him way ahead. As you can see, Rickyk Chin has fallen significantly behind here with, as you mentioned a minute ago, Ian, that Den Protector face up signifying that he's missed his land drop, which he has.
Wow.
He went turn 1. Oh, wow.
That
Was
is
Jeskai
not what
charm?
you want to see from Rickyk Chin's position here. So no Mantis Rider for Ryoichi Tamada, but Jeskai Charm puts Warden of the First Tree on top of the library. That means no 3rd land yet again for Rickyk Chin. And he'll have to level that Warden right back up again.
Wow, so a huge tempo play there for Tamada, effectively setting Rickyk Chin back at least 1 land drop plus 3 mana. When you're only on 2, that's massive.
And speaking of tempo, you know what else is good when your opponent's on 2 lands?
What's that?
Gideon, Ally of Zendikar.
Oh, no. Are we going to see that from Tamada here?
I certainly hope so. Unless he's drawn something better this turn, which I would find hard to believe. But we'll see.
You can see Gideon Ally of Zendikar on your screen there. New mythic rare from Battle for Zendikar, and has made a significant impact in Standard. We've seen it down in the feature match area pretty consistently over the course of the weekend, even occasionally in Booster Draft.
Really powerful, really flexible card, whether you're just paying 0 loyalty to make a 2/2 every turn, or cashing it in right away for an emblem, or just beating down for 5. Like, all 3 of those modes are excellent. I think we're going to see a lot of this card going forward.
can see a bit of a concerned look on Rickyk Chin's face, and rightfully so. He is falling further and further behind in this game, and there he is. Gideon hits the battlefield.
And it even triggers prowess for the Seeker of the Way.
All right. And he is going to make a 2/2 Knight ally. And yeah, he can't resist crunching in there for 3 damage here and knocking Ricky down to 13.
Now, Ricky's not out of this yet. He does have Death Miss Raptor in his hand in multiples and Nissa Vastwood Seer. So if he can get up to that 3rd land, he's got some action coming.
I think he just found it. Yeah.
All right.
Wooded Foothills off the top there for Ricky. So here's an opening.
So he's got 2 options here. Death Miss Raptor is a great blocker against these 2/2 creatures on Ryoichi Tamada's side of the board. Or he could just go for Nissa Vastwood Seer. If he thinks he has time, make sure he hits his 4th land drop and then take it from there. I think both are solid options. Given that he has the Den Protector in play to potentially trade with the token, we might see him go for the Nissa here just to try to get up to that Wingmate Rock in his hand.
That can certainly sway it back in his favor. He decides to go for the Death Miss Raptor.
Okay, also a totally reasonable choice. I mean, it's got Death Touch, so it's guaranteed to trade with whatever Tamada can present. And he also knows Tamada has 4 copies of Fiery Impulse, which is a little bit unusual, unexpected. But remember, these players have seen each other's deck lists. This is the top 8, so deck lists are public. And Death Miss Raptor is a creature that does not die to a single Fiery Impulse.
You know, a funny little anecdote that came out of this. Again, Ricky, in his first Pro Tour, he hasn't been out here before. He hasn't gone through this. And I think he asked BDM yesterday, do we get deck lists? Do I have to look that up online? Where do I find that? Turns out they're provided for you if you top 8 the PT here. So Ricky didn't have to go online to find them.
Gideon ticking up, becoming a 5/5 indestructible creature.
And are we going to see a chump block here? He's
Looks
lining
like
it up. He's at least considering it. Yeah, and like you mentioned, Ian, Gideon is indestructible here. So Death Touch is not going to apply. But Ricky, he definitely doesn't want to take the 5 here. He's just trying to decide which creature he's going to let go.
You do not want to go down to 7 this early in the game against a deck sporting Mantis Rider and Jeskai Charm.
Speaking of Jeskai Charm, there's 1 in Tamada's graveyard, and now he's got Jace Vryn's Prodigy. Ricky wants to get a quick view here on what's in the yard. And the answer is a Jeskai Charm and plenty of cards to get Jace transformed.
That's right.
Tick-tock.
So things are looking great for Ryoichi Tamada here. Unfortunately for him, the 2 remaining cards in his hand are lands. So there's definitely a world where Tamada just kind of floods out a little bit, and that gives Rickyk Chin the opportunity to get back in this game. Especially since he did hit his 4th land drop this turn. He has a Nissa Vastwood Seer to ensure that he hits his 5th, and he does have a Wingmate Rock in his hand. So that's one of his paths to get back into this game.
Now, in order for that to happen, he's going to have something left over to attack with and enable that raid trigger to get the 2nd copy. So he's going to have to manage that as well. And there's Nissa. All right, so this game kind of progressing as Tamada had hoped. A little bit of a stumble from Rickyk Chin, missing just the 1 land drop, punished by missing the 2nd one thanks to Jeskai Charm, and it has put Tamada ahead significantly in the game, but Ricky is fighting to get back in this thing. Oh, that was Jeskai Charm off the top, Ian.
Mm-hmm. So starting to look a little dangerous for Rickyk Chin here. Jace plus Jeskai Charm means that's potential 8 points of direct damage aimed at Rickyk Chin's face here. So if Gideon gets through even a single time, that's enough to open the door for Tamada to just win the game with burn from that point.
So first he's going to start things off by activating Jace Vryn's Prodigy. After he discards, that will transform. Tamada discards a mountain.
So a couple options here. We could see, for example, Jeskai Charm on the Death Mist Raptor, putting it on top of Rickyk Chin's library. That would allow Seeker of the Way and the Ally Knight token to attack, along with Gideon. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is those Jeskai Charms just get saved for direct damage. And that's 8 points right there. So
Yeah, you can see Tamada's going through those options right now, Ian, as he tries to figure out his cleanest route to victory. It does look like he's got the finish line in sight here.
I think putting the Death Mist Raptor on the top of the library is pretty reasonable here. That ensures that those other 2/2s can attack, which sort of represents 4 damage already in and of itself. So it's kind of like getting the best of both worlds.
And he's also blanking a draw step from Ricky here. Wow.
But he does have to be a little bit careful because he doesn't want to leave either of his planeswalkers vulnerable to a counterattack.
And in comes the team just as you described it, Ian. And Rickyk Chin falling further and further behind here. Just a Den Protector with no counter on it. And a 2/2 Nissa on defense. His life total falling quickly all the way down to 12 already.
Now, I think we'll see Rickyk Chin try to save one of his creatures here. That does 2 things for him. From his point of view, it would let him attack Jace and kill Jace, but also it allows him to trigger Raid for Wingmate Rock. Now, Ryoichi Tamada has wisely left up 3 lands that can cast the other second Jeskai Charm in his hand and stop his Jace from dying in combat. But what'll be interesting to see is, does he cast that Jeskai Charm before or after Rickyk Chin's creature has attacked? Because that'll make all the difference when it comes to that Wingmate Rock Raid triggering. Or we could see a different sequence entirely.
Oh,
jeez.
jeez. Here's Silk Wrap to take down the Den Protector and leave Rickyk Chin with no board state outside of lands.
So now there's no option of Wingmate Rock trigger, no option of killing Jace here, and Rickyk Chin is in a tight spot. He needs to present multiple chump blockers, really, to get him out of this situation.
He does crack a fetch land to put him down to 6. It also shuffles away the Death Mist Raptor that was on top of his library. What does he want here? Is there anything? Look at that board state. He is so far behind.
Yeah, I think knowing what we know about Rickyk Chin's hand, I don't think there's any sequence that can get him out of this over the next turn or 2, even if he can survive the next turn.
So you only got...
I think best he can do here is a Death Mist Raptor and
I mean, does he even
hold up
have
Valorous Stance, but Valorous Stance doesn't
Yeah.
even take care of any of these attacking threats.
No. There it is. Death Mist Raptor, go. Tamada knows he's close to picking up the first game here. He sequenced this game out beautifully. And he's on the verge of taking game 1 of the first quarterfinal.
Yes.
He's
So
going
here
to
comes a
shrink down the Death Mist Raptor.
Big attack coming up here. And you know, Marshall, if we think back to earlier in the game, that Jeskai Charm on the Warden of the First Tree was really the key moment, because Ricky did have that 3rd land coming up on turn 4, but had to wait yet another turn to deploy that.
Yeah, that was a huge turning point in the match. All right, Death Mist Raptor down. Rickyk Chin down to 2 life. Yet another lethal threat hits the battlefield for Tamada as he moves closer and closer, and Rickyk Chin scoops up the cards. That is game 1 going to Tamada. And he's got a little bit of a smile on his face as he got a nice one. You know, he mulliganed that game as well. All right, that will do it for the first game here from the quarterfinals. We'll be back right after these messages.
Ultra Pro is the place to go for all your Magic accessories. With card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and portfolios showing off the best Magic art, Ultra Pro is the standard in safe storage. Visit ultrapro.com for more information. Join the battle! Battle for Zendikar is now available on Magic Online. Explore the new set by signing up for Magic Online at mtgo.com.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Milwaukee. We are down 1 game in our first quarterfinal. Now, we run these in a row here in the top 8. So you're going to get to see every single match, every single bit of action for the entire top 8 on this lovely Sunday day here in the Midwest. Now, the obvious topic of conversation here, Ian, is moving us towards the sideboard. So what we thought we would do is we would ask the players directly. Now, they're a little busy right now, but we took them aside earlier and had Brian David Marshall ask them, what are your plans for the sideboard?
All right, I'm here with Ryoichi Tamada. What is the plan for this deck after game one? How are you going to sideboard for this matchup?
I think that non-flying creature deal damage is difficult. So I wanna use flying creature. So barrel stance.
Barrel stance?
Whole barrel stance side out.
Okay.
And in Dragon Speaker, Sarkhan, Wingmail Rock, and Dispel. My creature, Kamakiri.
Kamakiri? Mantis?
Manta, so, flying, Manta. Mantis Rider. Mantis Rider, guard my opponent's Dromoka command from, and Silk Wrap.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Good games the rest of the way in the top 8.
Thank you.
I'm here with Rickyk Chin. Ricky, tell me which of these 15 cards are coming in after game one in this matchup.
Yes, I think I'm favored in the matchup, so I'm not going to make many changes. I'll probably bring the 2 Evolutionary Leap and the Gideon's Reproach, and then to take out the 2 Hidden Dragon Slayer and the Valor's Stance.
So you played this matchup in the Swiss?
Yes, I played against him in the 14th round, and I won 2-1.
And you made the same sideboard plan?
No, at that time I brought in 1 Surge of Rite of Ness. I might bring 1 or 2 in game 2 or 3 if he's on the play and I see that he's playing really aggressively, because he might side in a bit more control-y and more removal. So I'll see how he decided to sideboard, but I'll probably just stick to my main plan.
All right, good games the rest of the way in the top 8.
Thank you.
All right, back to our live scene here in Milwaukee. We're here for the Pro Tour. We're 1 game in to our first quarterfinal match. It's still early. Tamada finds himself up a game here, looking to make it to the semifinals against Rickyk Chin. Again, this is Ricky's first Pro Tour ever, and he finds himself in the top 8 under the lights. What did you make of the sideboard videos there, Ian? Is that what you expected to see from these players?
Well, I really, really like Tamada's sideboard plan. He described to us he wants to win with flyers, basically. He's against a green-white creature deck. He doesn't want to try to contest the ground at all. So he's going to bring in Sarkhan the Dragon Speaker and Wingmate Rocks, as well as Dispel to protect his Mantis Riders. So that makes a ton of sense to me. And he's bringing out Valorous Stance. Now, normally you'd think Valorous Stance would be fantastic against a green-white creature deck with lots of big creatures. But the green-white Megamorph deck, its creatures aren't that big. In fact, a lot of them are exactly like 3/3s, 2/2s, 3/2s. So Valorous Stance doesn't have a lot of targets there. So that plan makes a ton of sense to me. And then Rickyk Chin, as we heard from him, he feels he's a favorite in this matchup. So he's not making many changes at all. The main thing, he's basically taking out bad cards and replacing them with cards that are at least a little bit useful. So Hidden Dragon Slayer comes out. That has like no targets against Ryoichi Tamada's deck. And he brings in Gideon's Reproach, which is great against Mantis Rider. And Evolutionary Leap, which I don't think is fantastic in the matchup, but at least it does a little bit something there. It can, for example, sacrifice a creature that's been targeted by Jeskai Charm and things along those lines. So overall, I think we'll see similar game plans from both players going into Game 2, but I think Ryoichi Tamada, his deck actually gets a little bit better positioned post-sideboard as compared to pre.
All right. Now, I will note here that Tamada has mulliganed to 6 again. He did in the Game 1. Now, that didn't slow him down at all. But he's mulliganed to 6 and kept here. We see him using the relatively new, at least to us, Ian, Scry rule.
That's right.
You've been at it for a while.
That's right.
Do you just do it automatically now? Muscle memory?
Yes and no. We actually have a few different mulligan procedures we do depending on where we are in testing and R&D, actually. So.
All right, so nice start here for Rickyk Chin, who of course is at 20 life. And he's got the Warden of the first tree to kick things off. Now we saw this in the first game. He spent the second turn to level it up, as we say, to put a counter on it, make it into a 3-3. But then things kind of went awry for Ricky from that point on. Let's see if it goes a little smoother for him this time around, as he needs to win back-to-back games here if he's going to push on to the semis. I mean, he's going to go home back to Quebec with a smile on his face, I think, either way. But come on, you don't get these opportunities that often in your life, and you really want to push forward and see what you can do. All right, looks like he's got other plans for that 2 mana, as he's just going to attack for 1, and it's a Hanger Backwalker on turn 2. So a nice little start here again from Ricky. Not going to put all his eggs in one Warden-sized basket. This time he's going to kind of diversify out a little bit.
Yeah, fantastic start. And he has more lands to follow it up this time, so that's great for him. But Tamada with a turn 2 Jace, one of the best turn 2 plays his deck can muster as well. So both players with fantastic starts this game.
He's going to attack with both 1/1s here. One of them can get bigger. The other one requires a spell of some sort or some type of augmentation. It looks like Tamada's trying to decide, well, do I really want to block this Hangerback?
Yeah, blocking the Hangerback looks like a freebie here. I don't know how much you have to be worried about. I mean, Dromoka's command? It would kill your Jace anyway, and there's no additional value out of the other mode.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether he blocked or not there, but I think that's sort of a freebie.
And it was a freebie on Rickyk Chin's side as well, right?
That's right, because he wasn't planning on leveling up the Hangerback Walker.
Right, he was just going to use the mana as we see. Now, this is a nice curve from Rickyk Chin here. He just went 1-2-3 on the play. This is going to be tough for Tamada to come back from. He has his Jace Friends Prodigy active here and looting. Now, that could help out down the line a little bit, but in the immediate sense, he's going to be taking a pretty good chunk of damage here if he can't affect the board right now.
Yeah, that said, Tamada's particular list of Jeskai is adept at coming back from board states like this because he plays Silk Wrap, he plays 4 copies of Fiery Impulse. Unfortunately, he hasn't found a Fiery Impulse here. That would be great for him if he found one.
He does have 3 mana in all of his colors, but he's just going to pass the turn back and really kind of put it to Rickyk Chin to figure out what options Tamada has here.
Yeah, it looks like Tamada has opted to keep up Disdainful Stroke rather than commit the Silk Wrap during his main phase.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is a little bit interesting. I think he's thinking about Gideon right now. That's the main thing that you'd want to be using Disdainful Stroke on. And he's right to be worried about that. If Gideon were to come down while he was tapped out for Silk Wrap, Tamada would be in a heap of trouble right now.
It doesn't look like he's in a great position, as it does said he just took 5 damage, down to 12, and it looks like another 3 mana spell here for Rickyk Chin. That's going to be a Nissa. So not a whole lot going on this turn for Tamada.
Yeah, Tamada can't be pleased with this. I mean, on the one hand, he can leave up Disdainful Stroke when he has 3 mana and not make it super obvious because he has things like Jeskai Charm that he could be casting with that mana anyway. Unfortunately, he doesn't actually have the Jeskai Charm here. So when Rickyk Chin played around Disdainful Stroke, or happened to play around Disdainful Stroke, I don't know which it was in this case, by playing Nissa, Tamada is just left with 3 unused mana. And that is a huge tempo loss for him.
Yeah.
And now comes the Jeskai Charm. He would have loved to have that last turn.
He's got to be thinking, like, 1 turn too late. Yeah, I mean, look, even in the scenario where Ricky taps out for, like, a Gideon and gets Disdainful Stroke, that's his best case scenario. And he still takes 5 damage that turn and has some work to do to scratch back. In the scenario here where Ricky adds another threat to the board that can't be Disdainful Stroked, he's fallen very far behind as Tamada.
Yeah, and his deck doesn't have many ways to come back from an overwhelming board advantage on the other side. He doesn't have cards like Radiant Flames that can just sweep away all those creatures. He needs to answer them 1 for 1 or present his own, hit threats and blockers or try to end the game before he dies. And all 3 of those paths seem unlikely given the board state and the way this game has been shaping up.
A lot of interesting information being revealed to Rickyk Chin here as Tamada uses his Jace and discards a Jeskai Charm. Ricky's going to know that he had drawn that turn and didn't have it before. And here's Silk Wrap now for Tamada. It resolves. What do you want to target? He's going to target Deathmist Raptor here. Now, normally you would love to target a card like Hangerback Walker because it's basically a permanent answer for that card. The problem is he doesn't have the luxury of picking and choosing. He needs to take the biggest threat off the table. And if Rickyk Chin ends up having a card like Dromica's Command, then Tamada just has to live with that and hope he doesn't have it.
So Tamada again leaving up Disdainful Stroke, perhaps hoping that Rickyk Chin just goes for a Gideon this turn and he can spend his mana effectively and then untap and think about answering what's on the board.
Maybe a Wingmate Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And Rickyk Chin once again not falling for it here. At least on the surface, he's playing less IC. And look at his hand.
Yeah, as it turns out, Ricky doesn't even have any
Disdainful
target. Yeah, Disdainful Stroke targets. And this is just looking super rough for Tamada here.
What a beating. Yeah, Tamada has been behind since the get-go. Again, the 1-2-3 start from Rickyk Chin. And Tamada, that one turn that he left up Disdainful Stroke with 3 mana instead of playing Silk Wrap has really haunted him here as he's just fallen further and further behind.
Yeah, it's true. I'm not sure he was even in great shape if he did deploy the Silk Wrap there. I think what he really needed this game was to see a Fiery Impulse just to catch up a little bit on tempo.
I agree.
And I'm sure the mulligan, limiting his options there was a factor here as well.
Did Jace just attack?
Yeah. That's the old attack for 0.
Is this a Wingmate
I like to do
Rock
that with
scenario?
my Birds of Paradise sometimes, Marshall.
So, does he have a Wingmate Rock?
Yeah, he does have a
I see it
Wingmate
in
Rock.
his
Yeah,
hand.
he's just
Okay.
trying to trigger raid here. And this is...
Love it.
Yeah, this
Get
is the
in
best
there.
he can do with the tools that he's got, and it's actually fairly reasonable here.
That's great.
I mean, in theory, if Rickyk Chin doesn't have a way to answer this, 2/3/4 bodies is perfect against, these 2/3/3 Wardens, Nissa Vastwood Seer. She's not ready to transform yet.
The best thing is that Jace got in there.
He's heroic, man. He likes to rumble.
He did not get blocked.
He doesn't hit
either.
very hard, but he likes to rumble.
That's great. That is the second time I've seen Jace Friends Prodigy attack in the feature match area this week. And the other time there was a Gideon emblem involved, so Jace actually had a little power. It's got to be an achievement unlocked for Tamada. Now, you mentioned this a second ago, Ian. You said if Ricky doesn't have an answer for Wingmate Rock, does he? Does he have anything?
I don't think so. I mean, we saw he had Ward in the first tree and 2 Den Protectors last turn. Looks like he's picked up a second copy of Nissa Vastwood Seer, which is not going to help him here.
He just passed the turn back.
Wow.
Has Tamada stabilized this board?
For the time being, that looks to be the case.
Tamada says, so you're telling me I've got a chance. Looks at his hand. Now all of a sudden things are looking much better. He still has that Jace active.
He's got Dispel to protect his flyers, just according to the plan of his sideboard plan there.
Yeah.
And I mean, his hand was reactive the whole game. Unfortunately, Rickyk Chin got out underneath all of his reactive cards, like Disdainful Stroke. Now that he's kind of back in the driver's seat, that he has a board presence that he can use to protect himself, those reactive cards pick up a tremendous amount of value.
So what's Ricky's plan here?
Ricky's plan is to draw. Well, he has a lot of good draws
here, right?
Yeah, he can level up his Wardens.
Okay.
That's one thing for sure. A 6th land would be good as far as leveling up his Wardens and progressing toward transforming Nissa Vastwood Seer. So he's got, and Dromica's Command, from his point of view, would be great too. Of course, we know Ryoichi Tamada has his copy of Dispel that he brought in specifically to counter Dromica's Command.
All right, now here's a Silk Wrap to take down one of Ricky's Wardens of the first tree. Ricky still has a nice turn here, though, where he gets to use up all of his mana on his creatures that are already on board here, as you see he does here.
Now,
Ooh, there's a Dromica's Command off the top. What does that get, Ricky?
It gets a dispel
It gets
out
a
of
dispel
Ryoichi's
out of his
hand,
hand.
unfortunately. But, he's probably, he's thinking, okay, this is great. I can take out a Wingmate Rock and one of the Silk Wraps maybe, get back a creature. That's a lot of value. So I think even though from Ricky's point of view, Dromoka's Command is one of the best draws he could have gotten, from our point of view, knowing that Tamada has the Dispel in his hand is actually one of the worst draws he could have gotten. Because most of the non-land cards, other non-land cards in Rickyk Chin's deck, and even lands are pretty good for him here, but Dromoka's Command just plays right into that Dispel.
Here we see a double block now, and this is going to be a blowout in Tamada's favor here. Dispel that.
Ouch.
Oh, that is a dagger. Rickyk Chin loses his Warden of the First Tree with a level counter on it as well, and Tamada loses nothing. Like you said, Ian, that was actually a really bad draw for Chin.
Yeah, it led him right into that trap. However, Rickyk Chin does have Den Protector, and that could get back Dromoka's Command for round 2, and it'll still be effective on the second time around. But for the time being, it looks like Tamada is kind of in the driver's seat, and he does have Jace here with Jeskai Charm in his graveyard, so we could potentially see a Jeskai Charm on the Den Protector, buying some time. Wingmate Rock might even start attacking here and gaining a little bit of life.
Yeah, Tamada is down to 5. In the meantime, this is the one that gets Jace transformed. Discarding another copy of Jace. Transform now. And we know he's got a Jeskai Charm in his graveyard. And you mentioned that that could easily be used to kind of take care of that Den Protector face down. That's the first of 2 Den Protectors for Ricky. He's got one in his hand still.
And the advantage of Jeskai Charming the Den Protector here is it's basically a full time walk. Assuming that's a Den Protector, and
what do you mean by time walk for people that aren't?
So basically, it gives Tamada a full extra turn, and it denies Rickyk Chin his draw step. So the board state sort of remains the same, except the turn goes back to Tamada again. Because really what Rickyk Chin wants to do is turn up that Den Protector on his turn, get back Dromoka's Command, and cast it. But Jeskai Charm means he needs to spend another 3 mana playing it face down yet again, and another, and then still spend the 2 mana to turn it face up and get the Dromoka's Command back. Oh, but Gideon.
Jeez. The hits keep coming here for Tamada.
And this is sort of the hidden power of Jace here. Once that Jace came down for Tamada, his somewhat awkward hand has gotten a lot better. He's just gone, Wingmate Rock into Dispel your Dromoka's Command into Gideon, and now he's really, really taking over the board.
He's also back up to 7 life, thanks to that last attack.
It looks like a second command off the top for Rickyk Chin.
Now this one looks a lot better, right? Tamada
Definitely.
doesn't have a way to answer this. He does have Disdainful Stroke in his hand with the mana up, but it's not going to get the job done against the Dromoka's Command.
So this may be an opportunity to take out Gideon, in fact. He can command pumping up any of his creatures here, really. Maybe the Hangerback Walker, take out the Knight token, attack into Gideon.
All right, he's going to turn that Den Protector face up and get back his other copy of Dromoka's Command. So now he has 2.
So a couple different options with the command here. We'll wait and see what Ricky picks.
+1 in fight.
So +1/+1 and fight on the Hangerback Walker.
Okay.
And both creatures at Gideon and Nissa at Jace.
Yes, 3/4.
So the Den Protector is what got targeted by Jace last turn. Is that what that die was representing? Okay, so it was a slightly smaller Den Protector. But you know what? big enough alongside that hangerback walker to get the job done. And you said it a minute ago, Ian, that could open up the door to take down Gideon, and Ricky proudly walked right through that door, and Gideon finds himself in the graveyard here.
But all of a sudden, we're in a potential race situation. I mean,
yeah. How did we get here? This is not how I predicted this one going, 3 or 4 turns in. But Tamada with the pair of wingmate rocks.
Yeah, this game was looking absolutely hopeless for Tamada until, Jace got into the red zone. That was really the key turning point, was that attack for 0, I think. In all seriousness.
I mean, it kind of was, right?
Yeah, as silly as it sounds. So Rickyk
and the
Chin,
no block has really kind of mattered in a big way here, right?
Mm-hmm. Rickyk Chin with 8 points of power on the board. It does make it dangerous for Tamada to make attacks here, but I mean, he can attack, gain 2 life, deal 6 points of damage. Jace could tick up, preventing 2 more, or it could tick down for a Jeskai charm. That's also an option.
Yeah, Jeskai charm on hangerback walker is definitely nice these days.
And we do see Tamada has a backup Jace, so we could see him make some use out of Jace this turn. So Jace Telepath Unbound, play a new Jace Vryn's Prodigy, and set up for a Jeskai charm next turn off of the newly flipped second Jace. So lots of options here, and it's going to require some careful planning for Tamada to set this up, but I think he's really got a potential game plan here as far as racing.
Yeah, that 2 life that he's gaining from those wingmate rocks is really adding up. As you see, our life totals are now even at 9 apiece.
And do note that Jeskai charm plus attacks from the wingmate rocks does represent lethal here.
Yeah. And it seems unlikely that Ricky can get in for 9 damage here. He's only got 6 power on the board right now.
But Ricky does have a second copy of Dromoka's Command, and Ryoichi Tamada does not know that. So wisely, Rickyk Chin turned up his Den Protector and used the Dromoka's Command from his graveyard, concealing the fact that he had a second copy in his hand. And that could be instrumental in shaping this race over the next turn or 2. Because at instant speed, Dromoka's Command could pump up the hangerback walker and take out one of those wingmate rocks, and that would be the difference between a lethal attack and a non-lethal attack, leaving Tamada vulnerable on board.
Now, I believe that Ricky has attacked Jace here.
Okay.
And Tamada seemed pretty happy there to say, okay, sure, Jace will take one for the team here.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if there is a line. Now, I haven't thought this through as carefully as I'm sure our players are right now, but wonder if there's a line where you just go all out and attack Tamada directly and then try to set up a mid-combat Dromoka's Command next turn after Tamada has committed his wingmate rocks as attackers.
Kind of get him.
Yeah. Now, that said, Rickyk Chin hasn't chosen this line. Instead, he's going to take out that second copy of Jace with his second copy of Dromoka's Command, ensuring that there's no flashback Jeskai charm shenanigans.
Yeah, we did get a chance to see Jace rumble into the red zone earlier, but it turns out in this particular fight, he doesn't look up to the task. So this is a big swing back in Ricky's direction here as he gets back his Death Mist Raptor. He even has another Den Protector as a follow-up play, and Jace Vryn's Prodigy and the other Jace that was on the battlefield there are both gone as he passes a turn back.
But a lot could happen with this top deck here. Let's see what Tamada drew.
He kind of thumbs through his graveyard.
Looks like a Flooded Strand. That is not what he wants here.
Oh, that was a huge swing back in Ricky's direction. Has he seized this game back?
I think he very well may have. Tamada, I think, is forced to put the brakes on his attacks here and keep those wingmate rocks back on defense. But as we know, that face-down morph creature is a Den Protector, which can get back another Dromoka's Command, take out one of those wingmate rocks, and set up a lethal attack here if Rickyk Chin is willing to take that risk. And I think he will, because he knows that if Tamada did draw Jeskai Charm, which is really his only instant speed thing that could throw off combat here, Jeskai Charm would have been lethal on the previous turn. So he can rule that out as a possibility.
Yeah. Here he goes. He's going for it. Den Protector gets turned face up, gets back Dromoka's command. This is the third one going on the stack this game. Ricky's doing math. Another counter on his Hangerback Walker. Fight your main Wingmate Rock, and this is going to be a huge attack now for Rickyk Chin from Canada in his first Pro Tour. He's going to force a Game 3.
Wow.
Great start from him. Waned a little bit in the middle, but he finds the victory in the end.
That was an awesome back-and-forth game. I thought Tamada was completely out of that on turn 4.
Me too.
Know. But then things swung back, and it looked like he was poised to win. But then Rickyk Chin comes back yet again with those multiple Dromoka's commands and locks things up.
Yeah, Dromoka's command has been a big player. I think it's been the most impactful of the command cycle that we've seen. We can take a look at it here. Some insight.
Yeah, just an incredibly flexible card. When R&D designed this card, we were thinking about, okay, we're toward the tail end of Theros block plus cons. We knew Theros had a lot of powerful enchantments in it, like Courser of Crufix and others, and we wanted to provide an efficient way to answer those and kind of push them out, to create churn in the metagame here. This card does a lot of other things as well. Besides answering enchantments, it also adds counters to your creatures. It fights. That +1/+1 counter has synergy with things like Hangerback Walker. We've seen other people using cards like Avatar of the Resolute this weekend. Just an awesome, flexible card. Any green-white deck is interested in this card for sure.
Yeah, super cheap too, just 2 mana.
Yeah. And we've talked a lot about a lack of instant speed removal, especially cheap, efficient instant speed removal that can take out Jace in this format. With Jace being such a key card. And that's one of the really appealing things about the white-green color combination is it actually has one of the best pieces of instant speed removal available in the format if you're willing to play those two colors together.
Thankfully for green-white fans around the world as well, there are plenty of other good cards to play alongside Dromoka's.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We've come a long way from the days of green-white just being the little kid creature deck, right? Where you play out a bunch of grizzly bears and Sarah Angels and your opponent casts Wrath of God and you just scoop them up and go home with a sad face.
I remember thinking like that.
Yeah,
back in the day.
for a long time in Magic, that's what green-white was known for. It was like the little kid deck.
Let's take a look at Jace Vryn's Prodigy here. We have been talking about this card all weekend long, Ian. Jace made a pretty strong impact in pre-rotation standard, certainly earned the respect of the player community. Now all of a sudden it just seems to be one of the top 2 or 3 cards in the whole format.
Yeah, definitely. Super powerful cards, super influential in the format. And this is a fairly common thing that we see around the time of a set rotation where the cards that, that were kind of strong up-and-comers from the previous standard really kind of explode. And that's just the nature of the rotation. 4 sets went out, 1 set came in, so that the format's a little bit smaller than it used to be. And so these standout cards really, really become even more impactful than they once were.
I mean, you had me at Looter, I'll be honest.
Did I? That's all it took? Okay. Because when Origins was first spoiled, this card I felt was a little bit underrated. People were like, it's just a Merfolk Looter. That's not that good. How good is the transform side? I'm not really sure. But after people played with the card, they really realized the power.
Yeah, for sure. All right, players are ready. Let's head down now for Game 3 of our first quarterfinal match. Who's it going to be? Tamada or Chin? We're going to find out right now. Tamada is on the play this time. But again, Rickyk Chin, all 3 games here, has had Warden of the First Tree ready to go on the first turn. No 2-drop here for Tamada.
Tapped land, that is huge for Tamada, and huge in a bad way. I mean, we mentioned before he has 12 proactive 2-drops, and he really, really wants to start his game plan on turn 2.
And this is just like last game. 1-drop, 2-drop. Let's see if Rickyk Chin can keep the permanence flowing here. And what does Tamada do to reply? Jace Vryn's Prodigy. Now, we just talked about that card, Ian. Super powerful. Little bit slow here if Ricky has an explosive start like he did last time. Although we did see Jace play an integral part in Tamada getting back into game 2 there, even though it didn't quite work out for him. Without Jace, I don't think he would have had much of a chance at all.
Yeah, and Jace is what he needs here. You're right, it's slow. It doesn't really present an attacker or a blocker. But given that Tamada has missed his 3rd land drop, he really needs to start getting that card selection, finding his land drops, finding answers. So Jace is really just what he needs.
This is exactly how the other game started.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even though Tamada was on the play this game, it's playing out like he was on the draw because his 2nd land entered the battlefield tapped and he missed his 3rd land drop. So this is actually the same board state, I think, that we saw on Rickyk Chin's 3rd turn in the last game. The exact same board state, I think.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, and even with the Nissa here. So Ricky off to a nice clean start with an opponent who looks like he may be struggling on mana. He could be inching closer to finding himself in the semifinals of his first Pro Tour ever.
So Tamada really looking for another land, doesn't find it, has to Jace main phase.
Finds it with the Jace, and it was even a mountain giving him all 3 colors now, Ian.
That's great. An untapped land and the 3rd color that he needs. So really good pickup there.
All right, let's have a good, clean game here, gentlemen. Seeker of the Way is the play. Now, we saw Dispel game 2 out of Tamada, and it really kind of got Ricky. So he's going to be keenly aware of the fact that Tamada still has 1 blue mana up. And in fact, Tamada does have Dispel in hand as well. So Ricky's going to have to play this carefully.
Ricky, though, in a great spot here. He's not interested in casting in the instance this turn. He's got Gideon.
Oh. All right.
So Tamada's situational counterspells not working out the best for him so far this match.
Yeah, they're just killing him.
He had Disdainful Stroke against a bunch of Nissas, Den Protectors, and Warden of the First Tree last game. This game he has Dispel against turn 4 Gideon.
So Ricky decides to attack with Warden of the First Tree because he can threaten to activate it. He does not attack with Nissa here, which would also trade for Seeker, assuming there were no shenanigans for Tamada there. He's just going to keep it back, play his Gideon, make a knight, and push himself ever closer to the semifinals. Tamada's got a full grip of cards here. And he's going to discard that Dispel and play a Mantis Rider, which is going to take a big chunk out of Gideon's loyalty here, but not finish him off. It looks like Ricky wants to get aggressive here, Ian. I think he's going to plus Gideon and start rumbling.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Making more 2/2 creatures against a Mantis Rider is helpful, but not the best. Rickyk Chin with no way immediately to remove that Mantis Rider. And he does have the option to just kind of keep pumping out 2/2s and try to go wide and go around it and maybe make some chump attacks into the Mantis Rider to get some damage in. But I think the better game plan is just plussing Gideon and getting in there for 5.
He's going to take it, make it 8. And another Warden of the First Tree with the mana to activate it, which he's just going to do right now. Get that out of the way. And Ricky has really built out a nice board state here. Pair of 3/3s. He's got a Hangerback Walker on one. He's got Nissa. He still has Gideon alive. And even a Knight token to round out his board. He's got Tamada down to 8 life. Tamada cannot seem to find his mana this game, he did find that mountain, which really helped him out. It let him deploy some spells for the last 2 turns, but he's got, what, 6 or 7 cards in his hand here?
Yeah, it does look like Tamada has some things to work with, though. He's got Fiery Impulse plus Silk Wrap, which could take out 2 creatures, pump up that Seeker of the Way. Mantis Rider is guaranteed to kill Gideon this turn, so there are some options. The problem is he really wants to Silk Wrap that Hangerback Walker. Fiery Impulse can take out one of the Wardens of the first tree with Spell Mastery.
Yeah, he does have it. He discarded a Treasure Cruise and a Dispel to his Jace Friend's Prodigy to set that up.
So I guess
that's not a bad turn here, right?
It's not a bad turn. I guess, yeah. What I like is Silk Wrap the Hangerback, Fiery Impulse the untapped Warden.
Kills
Seeker of the Way is now a 4/4. Mantis Rider kills Gideon. Seeker of the Way just gets in there, offers to trade with the Knight and the Nissa. If not, or either way, still gains 4 life. So that means Tamada's not dead on the crackback.
And then he has the Mantis Rider to block.
Yeah.
Seems like a reasonable line here. Also, he found a Flooded Strand off of his Jace, which is going to mean that if he wants, he can transform Jace next turn.
Treasure Cruise being discarded there, showing that Tamada's thinking kind of short term here. He knows he needs to make some plays right now, and he can't think about getting greedy and drawing a lot of cards in future turns.
Tamada also working his way up towards a Wingmate Rock here, it looks like, as well.
Okay, so doesn't go for the plan we were outlining there. He's got other things in mind. Looks like he wants to set up Fiery Impulse and block with Seeker of the Way.
Yeah, he wants to leverage his Seeker of the Way as a kind of pseudo-removal spell here in conjunction with an actual removal spell.
And this makes a lot of sense. He's in no hurry to play that Silk Wrap since it's going to be going on the Hangerback Walker most likely anyway. He doesn't mind if the Hangerback gets an extra activation in here. It's not making any Thopters regardless.
And it's not getting in the red zone either.
Right, and this just gives him a little bit more upside. If Rickyk Chin makes a misstep here and makes kind of an ambitious attack, he could get a nice 2-for-1 blowout with Fiery Impulse mid-combat. And if not, he can always deploy the Fiery Impulse.
All right, now what do you think about this, Ian? So Rickyk Chin decided to go for Gideon here and immediately cash it in for an emblem.
I think it makes a lot of sense. Leaving Gideon on the table, it's vulnerable to Mantis Rider, and cashing in that emblem means that all of his creatures can trade or get past Mantis Rider.
There you go. The emblem, of course, gives all of Ricky's creatures +1/+1.
So Fiery Impulse takes out one of the Wardens of the first tree before it goes up to 4/4 stats. That makes Seeker of the Way a 3/3 lifelink and severely limits Rickyk Chin's options for attack this turn. Now, that said, that emblem is a permanent threat. That's not going away for the rest of the game. So all of Rickyk Chin's creatures from here on out will be bigger.
So Ricky's going to attack with his now 3/3 Knight. Tamada does view that as enough of a threat to trade it off, though, for a Seeker.
Yeah, plus you get the extra value
life
of the lifelink.
Yeah.
While the prowess is triggered.
Yeah, I mean, look, Tamada has done a really nice job of just sort of slowly whittling away at this board here and giving himself a chance to get back in this game, as he had fallen quite a bit behind in the early stages, just like he did in Game 2. Now, he got himself back in that game as well. Wasn't quite able to finish it, but...
And Rickyk Chin just out of gas now. He's just got 2 lands left in his hand. He can use those to level up the ward in the first tree that he still has, but we're starting to see Tamada open the door a little bit.
Yeah. It does also look like Ricky is going to be able to transform Nissa next turn and to start maybe fueling either his board state, make a 5/5, or draw a bunch of cards. Mantis Rider, of course, doing its job here, though, and threatening Planeswalkers in a big way.
Now, Tamada also has the option to transform Jace this turn and Fiery Impulse Nissa before she can transform. The downside of that is the Hangerback Walker and the Warden are both also potent threats. So he needs to think about how he's going to budget his removal here. He has 1 Silk Wrap and 1 Fiery Impulse from the graveyard. Other options include trying to flashback that Treasure Cruise from the graveyard with Jace. But I don't know if Tamada has time for that. I think he needs to answer these onboard threats first and hope that Rickyk Chin, still doesn't have much to follow up with.
So first things first, Tamada is going to crack 2 flooded strands here before he makes his play. That drops him down to 9 life. And there it is, Wingmate Rock.
Okay, I like it.
Of course, post Mantis Rider attack here. So Tamada just decides to go for the biggest, most powerful thing he can. He's also left his Jace Vryn's Prodigy sitting there. And, you know, we've seen this interaction come up a lot over the course of the Pro Tour here where you can block with Jace, activate it, and transform, and that basically nullifies an attack from an opponent without any real loss to you.
This is a nice line here. Now, he's taking the sort of risk that 7th land comes down and transforms Nissa, but with 9 points of flying in the air, I guess he's not worried about Planeswalkers here.
It does seem to be the case.
He says you can get your 1 extra card or your 1 4/4 elemental, and then Nissa's going to be dead.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a 5/5 in this scenario, but
that's right.
Either way.
But the card pickup, huge for Rickyk Chin. That's a Dromoka's command.
Oh. Hear him say that's a good card. All right, the sleeves are going up for Ricky now.
So no question he's getting a ton of value out of this command. The question is just how exactly does he want to arrange this? And we see Nissa, Sage Animus there. Starts at 3 loyalty, can tick up to draw a card. If it's a land, it goes directly on the battlefield. Or -2 to make a legendary 4/4 elemental, which in this case would be 5/5 because of the Gideon emblem.
Ricky's passing the turn. Tamada kind of pauses there.
So this is always a tricky situation. Both players know that Rickyk Chin has Dromoka's command in hand. So we can expect whatever Tamada does, it's going to be with that in mind. Ricky knows that. So he may think, okay, well, whatever obvious opportunity presents myself might not be the correct one because Tamada's planning around this. So there's a little bit of a back and forth mind game going on here. And with the card as flexible as Dromoka's command, there's like a lot of different combinations that both players are thinking about and thinking about setting one another up for.
A nice play here from Ricky as well. He saw that Jace had discarded the one and only Dispel that Tamada has in his list. It's in the graveyard.
Oh, that's a great point,
so
Marshall.
there's no risk to shipping the turn back here as far as that goes. Okay, Gideon and another emblem is going to hit here. Tamada says, do I get the emblem? Can I have an emblem? This is huge. Both players are going to end up with emblems here.
Now look at what land Tamada has left up, Marshall. That's a mountain.
Ah.
So that signifies he's representing Fiery Impulse. Now, Fiery Impulse, not big enough to kill the Warden, but is big enough to kill the Hangerback Walker.
We see a response by Ricky, and now Tamada says, I may also have a response.
And it looks like Tamada actually does have the Fiery Impulse. Now, whether or not he actually had it, I think this is the correct land to leave up, given that, as you pointed out, the Dispel has already been used. But in this case, it's not a bluff. So we'll think about how Tamada wants to use this. So right now, the Hangerback Walker is a 2/2. It's been activated in response, which would put it up. Sorry, it's a 3/3 with two +1/+1 counters on it because of the Gideon emblem. So this is the opportunity in response to kill it with Fiery Impulse, but both players know there's a Dromoka's command, which could give it an additional +1/+1 counter at instant speed, or prevent the damage dealt by Fiery Impulse. That's another one of the modes on Dromoka's command.
Yeah, and Tamada working that out as you were saying it, Ian, and says, yeah, I can't afford to just throw away a Fiery Impulse here. So the Hangerback Walker becomes a 4/4, but with 3 counters on it. And here is Dromoka's command now. And I believe this is all with I'd like to have an emblem on the stack from Tamada. +1/+1 counter on my Hangerback Walker and fight.
And I really like that Rickyk Chin is using the Hangerback Walker to do the fighting here, because even if Fiery Impulse comes down afterwards or end of turn or in response, that's 4 2/2 Thopters that come out of that Hangerback Walker. Now, Tamada has a plan here as well, because he's been holding on to that Silk Wrap all game. So he still has an answer for the Hangerback Walker. He just needs to make sure the Hangerback Walker doesn't die before he has the opportunity to Silk Wrap it. And importantly for Tamada, his play of Gideon and making the emblem has forced Rickyk Chin to use the Dromoka's command before the Silk Wrap comes down. So there's no opportunity to kill an enchantment there. So these are all things that Tamada is thinking about in terms of jockeying for a longer game position.
What a great setup here. This has been an awesome match so far. Very back and forth. This looks like a close matchup. This is enough to kill Nissa as well.
That's right.
That's what he wants to do.
With the new emblem here. And that's a huge difference that emblem makes, because it allows Nissa to be cleanly polished off with a 4-point attack, and Mantis Rider also gets in for 4. And that's super relevant the way this game is shaping up. It's looking like it's going to shape up as a race.
It definitely is. Now, Ricky does have the shields down on Tamada here outside of that Fiery Impulse possibility. Now we know he's actually got it. There's another Hangerback Walker off the top for Ricky.
And Warden of the First Tree levels up to level 2 here, so now it has lifelink in addition.
And yeah, it's a 3/3 trample lifelink.
Yep, but the trample being huge here.
Yes.
Because I was going to say, as you pointed out, Marshall, Jace has been left up so it can block and transform.
Yeah.
But
that doesn't work as well.
When it transforms, it's removed from combat, and trample will allow the Warden of the First Tree to trample over. So there's still potential to gain a huge amount of life here. And I think we'll see Rickyk Chin take that opportunity to just go to level 3.
That would put him back to 20.
Yeah. And that basically takes racing out of the picture for Ryoichi Tamada.
Now, does that force Tamada to use the Silk Wrap on the Warden at some point here?
I believe it does, which then makes the Hangerback Walker a huge threat.
A massive threat. So this has just been a fantastic match here to kick things off. Our first quarterfinal match here at the Pro Tour. We've got a lot more coming up for you throughout the course of the day. But yeah, this has been awesome.
So Tamada pondering blocks here. He can't even block with the Jason transform it, because the Warden would be a 9/9 after activating its third ability, and it has trample, so that's exactly enough to kill him. So he actually has to chump block with the Hangerback Walker here. And it can add a counter in response, or not in response, but after blockers, and that creates 2/2/2 Thopters here. So Warden the First Tree deals 9 damage, 6 of it tramples over to Ryoichi Tamada, dropping him to 3, and Rickyk Chin up to 20 life. But Tamada picks up 2 more 2/2 Thopters,
which
for a total of
so 4 more power flying.
Yeah, so that's 12 power in the air.
Gosh,
so even though Rickyk Chin's at 20,
so close.
That's only two swings away. And with Tamada having a Silk Wrap to take out that Warden of the First Tree, and Jace to block the Hangerback Walker the next turn, we could see Tamada set up a race here.
At 20-3, Tamada could be setting up for a race situation. Again, I want to remind you that this is Ricky's first Pro Tour. I cannot imagine what's going through his head right now. Sitting down in the feature match area, playing such an intense, crazy, back-and-forth match where there was times when it seemed like he was going to win, and then it seemed like he was going to lose, and then he found the victory. In Game 1, he stumbled on his mana and got punished, and it maybe felt like one of those things where like, I had a good run, didn't get there. And now he's in this complicated late-game board state where it's really unclear who's going to win the game at any given point. It keeps changing every turn. There's that replacement Hangerback, but doesn't look great here.
Yeah, these games have been awesome. I mean, when you factor in all the different mana sinks that both players have, the Warden of the First Tree, the Hangerback Walkers, the different options from commands and charms, Jace giving you tons of different options. These games have been insanely complex, very, very skill testing, and it's been awesome to see these two players navigate this complicated game without the complete information that we have. You know, it's often easy to say, we know both players' hands, we can see how this game is shaping up, but you got to remember, these players don't even know what's in each other's hands, and they have to be thinking about possibilities that we're not even considering. But that said, Tamada...
This looks good for Tamada as it sits, right?
I think
like if you had to snapshot this relatively complex board, it would be favor Tamada?
I think what we're going to see is a Silk Wrap on the Warden of the first tree.
Okay.
Rickyk Chin just left with 2 Hangerback Walkers. The best they can do is attack on the following turn. So Tamada can just set up some careful blocks here to make sure he doesn't die. And I think Tamada has every reason to believe that Rickyk Chin has no further tricks, no further Dromoka's commands in his hand. He has 1 unknown card, but that's probably a land the way the game has played out. And so Tamada can just kind of sculpt this race looking at what's on board.
Well, we're going to get a lot more information about how this game's going to go because Treasure Cruise just got flashbacked by Tamada, Ian. So 3 fresh cards off the top of the deck here for our Japanese player. And let's see what he finds. These could be huge. See how slowly he looked at those? See what he found. Well, he still has a Silk Wrap. He found, looks like a Gideon, a Seeker, and a Hangerback. But the Silk Wrap's the key here. This card has been in his hand forever, and it looked like he was setting it up to finally go on the Hangerback Walker. But now he's going to use it for a massive hit on Rickyk Chin's, not only his board presence, but also his entire game plan.
Now, Seeker of the Way plus Fiery Impulse is pretty appealing here. That gives him an extra blocker. Fiery Impulse can take out that smaller of the 2 Hangerback Walkers. And the Seeker of the Way can block the larger of the 2. So those 2 cards alone will protect Ryoichi Tamada from a lethal attack.
Now Tamada doesn't want the bigger Hangerback Walker to die, right?
Correct.
He just wants to chump block that or make his life total such that he can ignore it.
So I think Tamada's pretty well set up for what Rickyk Chin has on board. So I think right now he's just thinking about what could Ricky draw? Is there a way I can play such that no draw from Ricky will win him the game? And that's a pretty complex sort of tree of possibilities there, but looks like he does hold back the Thopters sort of as a just-in-case thing. And Hangerback Walker comes out. This is a 2/2 Hangerback Walker with the 1+1/1 counter and the Gideon emblem.
Now, so Tamada does play the Hangerback here rather than the Seeker.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I think one of the only cards Tamada is worried about is a Dromoka's Command, which could take out a blocker. And having the Hangerback Walker there is just, it's an extra resilience. Even if the Hangerback Walker dies, he still gets a Thopter to block. He can block with the Hangerback Walker and get an additional flying attacker for the following turn to make sure he still has lethal.
Now this block does take down a Hangerback, the smaller one, from Ricky, but it also leaves him with a Thopter here. And another Hangerback. This one's got 3 counters on it as it comes down.
Okay, and we could see end of turn Fiery Impulse on the Thopter.
And setting up a lethal attack here for Tamada? Are we this close to having our semifinalist?
I think we may be, Marshall.
A quick head shake there from Ricky, and things are looking good for Ryoichi Tamada to make it into the semis. All he has to do is finish off Ricky from Canada in his first PT. He's being as careful as he can, Tamada. He's got another Gideon, and he's going to immediately sacrifice it. This gives him some redundancy on his attack here.
I can't think of anything that would get in the way of this attack.
Ricky has carefully left up mana here with 1 card in hand for a Dromoka's Command that is not a Dromoka's Command in hand, but that's the only thing I think that Tamada's realistically looking at here.
Yeah, I think Tamada's thinking about if he can use Dromoka's Command to kill off one of the Hangerback Walkers and get that many Thopters then to block, then what happens if that happens? Can I still survive the next turn?
But he's in. He attacks with everything,
and that's
that
it.
does it. Tamada is through to the semifinals. Ricky, great run, fantastic showing at your first Pro Tour. We will be seeing a lot more of Ryoichi Chin, I'm sure of that, but he is going to have to settle for a quarterfinal exit here in our first quarterfinal match.
Those were amazing games.
Fantastic
amazing
stuff.
games. If those players have been playing that well the entire tournament, it's no surprise how they ended up in the top 8.
Yeah, great stuff here from Milwaukee. Thanks so much for joining us. That's Ian Duke from R&DM, Marshall Sutcliffe, your host here in the booth. And what exciting stuff. I mean, if that's how our day is going to go, it's going to be a great day. I love the matchup. Super close, right? This was one of those things where it wasn't necessarily clear who was ahead, who was behind, but ultimately it's Tamada who advances to the semifinals. Now, let's send it back to Rich Hagan at the news desk for more information about our next quarterfinal match.
Thanks very much to Marshall and Ian Duke calling there, gentlemen. A fantastic opening quarterfinal. We said the appetizer. I feel pretty full after just one match. Randy, speak to us about Ryoichi Tamada.
Yeah, I was super impressed by him there. I thought he was going to lose game 2. I thought he was going to lose game 3. Came back, won those, wins the match. It's funny. I remember when Kenji Sumura won a WMCQ to make the Japanese team for the World Magic Cup. I was like, well, but they've got 2 guys you haven't really heard of. One of those guys is Ryoichi Tamada. He's on the Japanese World Magic Cup team. We're going to see him in a couple of months, in addition to seeing more of him this afternoon.
All right, so Tamada through. And Louise, a word for a young man who was in his very first Pro Tour, Rickyk Chin. To make the top 8 is an astonishing accomplishment.
Yeah, making top 8 at your first Pro Tour is amazing. I can't see him walking away from this feeling bad. You might be disappointed you lost your first match. That's natural, but making top 8 is still incredible, and he's going to be back for some bunch more Pro Tours based on that.
Right, so you will certainly remember his name. Ryoichi Chin advances to the quarterfinals, but Ryoichi Tamada, we see him this afternoon in the semis. All right, let's take a look at the bracket then, and if you're just joining us, you've missed a great match already, but plenty more to come. So we began the morning with, down at the bottom of your screens, Ryoichi Chin against Ryoichi Tamada, and it is the Japanese player who advances. He is through. Later this afternoon, or later this morning as it may be, we will have Kazuyuki Takamura against Martin Muller of Denmark. Our quarterfinals will wrap up with Owen Turtenwald against Paul Dean. But that means next, we have Paulovita Dama de Rosa against John Finkel. Now, Luis, you said in your set review for Battle for Zendikar that friends don't let friends play Kite Sail Scout.
I did, yes.
Okay, that's fine. I'm going to give you another piece of really important news about Battle for Zendikar. Friends don't let friends not watch this quarterfinal. If you know anyone who loves Magic and is sitting at home right now and not watching this, you need to get on social media or on the phone or even just send a pigeon out, because this is box office. Paulovita Dama de Rosa against John Finkel. Friends don't let friends miss out on Magic like this. So, let's take a look. We'll begin with Paulovita Dama de Rosa. We have tried to cram his career onto just one page for you. Here it is. 28, been around forever. Of course he's a Platinum Pro. 480 lifetime Pro points. That's quite a lot. Lifetime earnings, over 300,000. And that, of course, goes up by at least 10,000 today. This is his 10th Pro Tour top 8, 17 Grand Prix top 8s. He won Pro Tour San Juan in 2010, a four-time national champion, multiple Grand Prix titles, and just astonishing to see him back into double figures. Great stuff. So what is he playing? Let's take a look at his list. Dama de Rosa's Ataka Red. Luis, what is going on with Ataka Red?
So this is a mono red deck, just about. I mean, it's got a couple green cards, but the base strategy of playing 1-drops, attacking with them, pretty normal. Except it also has Become Immense, Titan Strength, and Teamer Battle Rage, which combine to just deal 20 out of nowhere. And that's really what pulled Paulo into this deck.
Yeah, there was we hear some pretty startling things at the video wall through the course of any given Pro Tour. One of the real standout sentences was when Paulo, during his deck tech for this deck, said, "I'm playing Splinter Twin." Now, that needs a little more explaining, if you would.
Well, the Splinter Twin combo, Deceiver Exarch plus Splinter Twin, instant win of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this deck, Become Immense, Teamer Battle Rage, pretty close to that. You're attacking with a 2/2, all of a sudden you're dealing 16 damage, trample, double strike.
Right, so when people are watching this match, when they see a Zergo Bell Striker or a Monastery Swiftspear on the table, they should sort of think of that as a red alert card, because that's kind of halfway there to, I'm actually just going to go off and kill you.
Yeah, what you really need to do is look at Paulo's graveyard and see if he has enough to fuel Become Immense, because that's really one of the keys.
Right, okay. Because Become Immense costs quite a lot unless you've got a way to make it cost
6 mana
less.
between your graveyard and your lands. So
Okay.
it's not that hard to do it on turn 4 or so, but if you don't draw Wooded Foothills or Bloodstained Mire, it gets a little more difficult.
All right, so we need to pay attention to a creature in play, the graveyard, and then combo out of nowhere. All right, well, across the studio, we have Brian David Marshall. He has a very special guest waiting for us to tell us a little bit more about this matchup.
I'm here with Player of the Year, Mike Sigrist.
How's it going, Brian?
Mike, Paulo was a semi-new addition to Team Face-to-Face Games.
Yeah.
You guys had collaborated with him as a member of China Fireball in the past, but now he came aboard as a full-fledged member for this Pro Tour.
Yeah. Yep, it was a lot of fun.
And then you said there was a lot to cover in this standard format. Talk about like how you guys arrived on this Atarka Red deck.
Yeah, there was a lot to cover because the mana was so good that, you know, if a deck didn't look good at first, you just had to dismiss it and move on to the next thing because there was just so many options. And we kind of tripped over our own feet, but the red deck kept winning. So we decided, you know, this is probably one of the best, you know, stock decks. So if we can't find anything that's better, might as well just play this.
And you said Paulo was a very staunch advocate for it.
Paulo was he was the head honcho in this, which is very surprising, yeah. He was like, guys, we don't need to work on anything else. This deck's good enough. We're not going to find anything better. Let's just work on this.
And then if you're in the house and you're a naysayer of this deck, if you're trying to find a reason not to play it, what's that reason?
It was, you know, people were prepared for it. It was a deck that everyone knew was good, and they had, you know, designed their sideboards in a way to be able to beat it pretty consistently. So that was the downside of playing the deck, I think, yeah.
Okay. And you said, though, Jeskai in particular,
Jeskai,
not
yeah.
a good matchup?
Jeskai is not a good matchup. They have a lot of cheap removal. They can keep all your creatures off the board with Radiant Flames, so it becomes hard to combo kill them. Like other decks, they tap out for a Siege Rhino, and you can go, well, I have it, so you lose. Kind of like Splinter Twin.
as we've heard Paulo say. So you guys were, the team was up working on it, testing it, trying to figure out this quarterfinal matchup. Is there hope for Paulo fans against John Finkel, or is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
He's on the play. That's huge. And just, the deck can win out of nowhere. It can have explosive draws that nothing beat. If, you know, John goes tap land into tap land, he could be dead before he gets to untap. So.
What's the biggest thing we should be keeping our eye out for in this matchup? Like if you see this on the board, or if you see something happening that you're going to be like, okay, this is a huge turn. What's a big signpost we should be watching for in this matchup?
Well, turn 3 Mantis Rider is tough if we don't have an explosive draw, and keeping board presence is really important for Paulo. If he can keep creatures on the table and make John react, then he can hopefully combo him out of nowhere on a turn that John has to commit to something.
Okay. I'm going to send it back to the desk in a second, but real quick, Tamada, another member of the Japanese World Magic Cup team now with a Pro Tour top 8.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Are we seeing a little is this going to be, you know, Tamada versus...
I hope so. Versus USA?
USA versus Japan?
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, well, I'm going to let you, I'll let you go. You got to start thinking about your World Magic Cup preparations.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, if you're a fan of Magic, you've got to be watching this quarterfinal.
Absolutely.
Sending it back to Rich at the news desk.
All right, thanks very much to BDM and Mike Sigrist. So much great Magic to look forward to. USA-Japan, one of the classic matchups. But now we've got USA versus Brazil. So who represents Team USA in this particular quarterfinal? It is, of course, the master himself, John Finkel. Let's take a look at his player profile. 37 years old now, been around since the very beginning of the game. Silver Pro, technically, but that's because he basically just plays Pro Tours now. Courtesy of being a Hall of Famer means he has access to every Pro Tour, can play whenever he wants. $376,000 plus $234, and that could be north of $400,000 by the end of today. The winner takes away $40,000 US dollars. This is his 15th Pro Tour top 8. Quite extraordinary and indeed unique. 9 Grand Prix top 8s, the player of the year back before many of you watching this were actually born. 3 Pro Tour titles, 3 Grand Prix titles. That's who he is, but what are the cards he has to work with? Let's take a look at the deck. It is Dark Jeskai, and Randy, the first thing that stands out is that there are so many card names on the screen. This looks like a modern deck list almost.
Yeah, no, they've spent a lot of time tuning this deck, and you want to have kind of a mix of removal in different situations, in particular for a matchup like the Atarka Red matchup, where you want to be able to kill all the creatures, but you want to get value. There's 3 Kolaghan's commands in particular, and a couple of Dispels, very mana-efficient ways to deal with threats that can come from any number of different angles. So it's a nice list. I like their take on Dark Jeskai for sure.
Can you give us a sense of why they are playing 1 copy of a card, 2 copies of a card? We have lots of new viewers on Sundays at the Pro Tour, and well, if 4 is the maximum you're allowed, why aren't all these things just 4, 4, 4, 4?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a school of deck building, which is just figure out what the best cards are and play just 4 of all of the best cards. The thing is, in a deck like this, between the 4 Jaces and a couple of dig-through times, you have so much ability to go find a card which is situationally very good that, when you see a lot of that deck selection in a deck, it makes sense just to give yourself more options so that when you go digging, you can find the right one.
All right, Luis, give me a winner.
I'm going to go with Paulo.
Randy.
I'm going to go with Gamers Helping Gamers. John Finkel donates 50% of his prize money to this charity that he set up in order to, help get gamers to be able to go to college. GamersHelpingGamers.org is going to get a lot of money from John. I think they're going to get even more because I think he wins this match.
All right. Tell your friends, it is time for one of the great showdowns in Magic history. Let's hope the cards fall the right way to give us a great spectacle. Paolo Vida, Dama de Rosa against John Finkel. Showtime.